I started skiing at 3 just as a family, and I started ski racing at 6. My parents just came home one day and said, "Hey, we enrolled you in ski racing." And okay, cool. And my brother, my sister, and myself, we were all racing. And yeah, I had dreams of, racing down the mountain, with my little buddies, and we'd get to the bottom and throw our hands up and yeah, I get to win the World Cup. So even as a little 6 and 7-year-old, I was dreaming that. And what I was reminded of, a few years later, my mom shared with me when I was an 8-year-old kid. I was sitting in our family kitchen one day, and my mom said, "Hey, Cary, where are your old ski boots?" And I said, "Well, they're down in the basement." And she went down to the basement, and I followed her down curiously. I said, "Hey, what are you going to do with my boots?" And she said, "Well, we're going to give them to Justin down the way because he's just learning how to ski, and this way he won't need to buy new boots." And I said, "Well, do you think when Justin's done with them, we can get them back?" And my mom was kind of looking at me quizzically. "Well, why, Cary? They don't fit you anymore." And I said, well, someday the Hall of Fame's going to want my first ski boots. So, she and my dad kind of said, "Okay," and supported me in that. They didn't laugh in my face or anything like that. Yeah. They said, "Okay," and then that built off into other decisions and commitments and disciplines. To chase that forward. And I was, very, very fortunate a couple of decades later to have my ski boot, my little ski boot. I don't have it here with us today, but I have it. It's in the Canadian Hall of Fame, and that's amazing to have it there.
This podcast provides a platform for our guests to share their experiences and inspire our listeners to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. As you listen, we invite you to explore how these concepts apply to your own story. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful. We're mic'd up with Mike DiCioccio. All right, guys, we are here with Cary Mullen. If you're not familiar with Cary, he is a 2-time Olympian and a World Cup downhill ski champion. Cary, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, pleasure to join you, Mike. Awesome.
And quick backstory, I met Cary, had the opportunity of seeing him speak as a keynote speaker at our President's Circle Award ceremony when I worked with a company called Sleep Number. And I reconnected a couple months ago with Cary on LinkedIn, and he was willing to do this episode once he learned about my show mission. So again, thank you for sharing your insights and your story with our audience.
Oh, congratulations. What a worthy thing to be doing out there, helping entrepreneurs climb the ladder and achieve their dreams and live a life and make a big difference in their communities and with the businesses they're running.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about off camera and something that's in your book, and I did have an opportunity to read your book when I got it at that keynote speech, was teamwork, right? So although entrepreneurs, we may be doing different things in different necks of the woods, right? Different countries even, Europe and Canada and also Mexico, but we can challenge each other and a little bit of a competitive teamwork. Something you mentioned is leapfrog, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But so I feel like, I see things you're doing that inspires me. Hopefully I can do something to return the favor.
Awesome. Exactly. It's inspiring to see others achieve, right? So
Absolutely.
Another thing I've observed is champions help champions, so they're not, holding on to their knowledge. People are actually very giving when you become successful. And that's a wonderful thing to try to keep the positive vibes going forward and keep on handing the knowledge to the next gen or your peers or whoever it is.
I agree. I mean, there's the mentality when you see somebody winning to be kind of jealous or upset or have envy. And that's a losing mentality to me. That's a victim mentality. Like, oh, why isn't that me? I feel champions and people who are winning and find success, and they create it themselves. When they see someone, whether it's yourself winning that gold medal or a friend who starts a business in their first year, they're successful, and maybe it took you 5 to get to that level. Real champions, I feel like, are excited for someone else when they win and not envious of that person. Would you agree?
True, for sure. Yes, for sure. There are times when it pushes us. Oh, come on, I got to get going myself. And there's other times it's total inspiration of, wow, that's miraculous what others can achieve and do. And we want to have a little bit of balance of that carrot and the stick, as they say. So I totally concur, though. Instead of just having jealousy, it's, take it and go, bravo to them. What did they do to do that? What do I want to do? And how am I going to get there?
Yeah, then study it, right? And see what we can learn from that person. Something I wanted to add as well. We talked about you being a 2-time Olympian and having a World Cup in downhill ski. You're the gold medal champion for that, right?
Correct. World Cup champion.
And also the founder and CEO of Vivo Resorts with 130 condos, which is really exciting. I'm going to say that's like your new business venture, but it's not. 20 years in the making, right?
Yeah, that one's about 12 years in the making. So yeah, it's
12,
been for 10 years. Yeah, so it's doing really well. Yeah, glad to be. Really, it's a place where I put a bunch of my heart and soul. Once I retired from competitive ski racing, I realized I'd lived as many winters as an 80-year-old man already.
Is that how your body felt?
Yeah, I've been going around the globe, 12 months of the year on snow every month for 15 years. And I was like, okay, I've had enough snow. I know you can find snow. Let me find sun. So yeah, I went in search of kind of the best beachfront spot to really build a resort for real estate ownership, but also for vacationers too. Place to go and rejuvenate, connect, and also a little different vision though, a place to live your best life where you could live healthier, happier, more connected. And so it was, a different spot, and really proud of it.
Yeah, I got to see a little. What's cool is back in 2012 when we did meet, you were talking about, I think, launching that or having it. It was pretty much in its infancy. You had some success with it. I think you might have had 3 locations. Now you said 130 condos. I saw that in research. And what I want you to talk about too in a little bit is the 44 factors that you came up with that make a perfect resort. I think that'll be interesting for us to see how you did your homework. Not to mention you got to travel all these beautiful locations. That was a nice benefactor, right?
Yes, totally. Nice fringe benefit to go searching for that on my R&D. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you put everything you learn. This is what I think is really cool. When someone's successful like Cary, and they don't only just take that win for themselves, they want to get it out to the world. And you did that in the form of your book, How to Win, which I kind of teased a little bit earlier. I love that book. It's a simple read. It goes pretty fast. And I like that you don't just simply talk about skiing and you don't bog people down with the technicalities of skiing. Every time you learned a lesson, you turned it on how someone can apply it to their life.
Yeah, for me, writing a book's a big undertaking. And so it was hard to do that. And I said, okay, well, what do I want to do? And I felt stories are sticky, that these are my stories and what were my lessons and how can I make this a benefit? I didn't want it just to be a book of, hey, me, and this and that. It's here's a book, here's my story in this one incident. And often it was, here is a challenge I had. Here was my learning from it. And now, hey, how is that maybe showing up in your life? And so I wanted to look at that. And what basically the overall draft was, I looked at sport and I was fortunate to chase my passion and become the best in the world. And I thought, what do we do in sport to become the best in the world? What do we do to set world records? And what of that, now that I'm retiring, can I take and learn and apply to my business, apply to life, and also share with others? Because I felt it was my calling also to share with others the stories in hopes that it would help them fast track their own success and also find inspiration to achieve their dreams, whatever their dreams are.
I think one of your gifts, aside from being a phenomenal skier, obviously, is doing that. I don't think everybody is born with the gift to be able to learn a lesson personally and then share it in a way that is easily understood. It doesn't help that I read at a 3rd grade level, but while reading your book, everything you said really hit home with me, and it was easy to apply it. At the time, I was in sales, right? I'm still in sales, but I was a sales representative for a company. And so I applied what you were doing on, I keep referencing the slopes, but in this case, you were literally on the slopes learning. You took those life lessons, and now we can all apply it to our businesses. And I think that's a gift in the way that you deliver it.
Thank you. I'm glad it resonated for you. And it takes as much wisdom to profit from good advice as to give it, right? So nobody knew for that. But no, thank you. I do feel I have a gift for that. And I also feel I've worked really, really hard for a couple of decades to also be good at that. So yes, many gifts look like they were naturally born into us, right?
So I want to start, first question I have is getting back to your early childhood and when you really started to realize your talents and and make that something into your vision. So when did you start skiing, and when did you have that moment when you felt that you're going to compete at potentially an Olympic level? Were you thinking that at a young age?
I was thinking that at a young age. When I was 6 years, I started skiing at 3 just as a family, and I started ski racing at 6. My parents just came home one day and said, "Hey, we enrolled you in ski racing." And okay, cool. And my brother, my sister, and myself, we were all racing. And yeah, I had dreams of, racing down the mountain, with my little buddies, and we get to the bottom and throw our hands up and, yeah, I get to win the World Cup, So even as a little 6 and 7-year-old, I was dreaming that. And what I was reminded of, a few years later, my mom shared with me when I was an 8-year-old kid. I was sitting in our family kitchen one day, and my mom said, "Hey, Cary, where are your old ski boots?" And I said, "Well, they're down in the basement." And she went down to the basement, and I followed her down curiously. I said, "Hey, what are you going to do with my boots?" And she said, "Well, we're going to give them to Justin down the way because he's just learning how to ski, and this way he won't need to buy new boots." And I said, "Well, do you think when Justin's done with them, we can get them back?" And my mom was kind of looking at me quizzically. "Well, why, Cary? They don't fit you anymore." And I said, well, someday the Hall of Fame's going to want my first ski boots. So, she and my dad kind of said, well, okay, and supported me in that. They didn't laugh in my face or anything like that. Yeah. They said, okay, and then that built off into other, decisions and commitments and disciplines. To chase that forward. And I was, very, very fortunate a couple of decades later to have my ski boot, my little ski boot. I don't have it here with us today, but I have it. It's in the Canadian Hall of Fame, and that's amazing to have it there. So
that's phenomenal. I remember you sharing that story again back at your keynote, and it resonated with me because when I was about 8 to 10 years old, that's when I started a passion for music, and I started drumming. And I remember, first time I put my hands on drumsticks and started to create a beat, I turned into John Bonham in my head from Zeppelin, right? At 8 years old, 10 years old. And you start playing along to your favorite records, and you picture yourself, at least I did, being in the Hall of Fame someday. I just, I already knew I wanted to make an impact and what that meant for people. And so for you to actually realize that dream, and what was neat is at 8 years old, you were sold on yourself already that you're going to do that. How about that conviction, right? That level of conviction, I feel like, is what takes a competitor that's just going to compete and be average compared to a winner at heart. And when you have it at 8, and then all of a sudden your skills match up your mindset, talk about that. Do you feel that was what gave you an edge at a young age?
I think it was certainly something that gave me an edge. I didn't have success as a youngster out of the gate, and so a lot of people were looking at me like, "Wow, what the heck do you think? No way!" Like, I didn't win the trophies when I was a kid. I didn't win the medals, and so it was hard. But I had this conviction and desire to become great, and so I was fortunate that I was able to have that conviction. I was also fortunate to have, I think, great parents that would help me reframe losses and look for how could I improve and develop and what did I need to do next. And I was disciplined and hardworking, and that was a real strength, along with the conviction that you talk about. I saw the end game, and I realized early I didn't have early success, so I had to play for the long game. I had to really develop and improve myself every day to someday be able to get there. And so that was really my skill set. But I didn't win it as a prodigy out of the gates, but I became a student early of the long game of success.
Yeah. I didn't realize that. I thought and sometimes you forget that someone of an Olympic athlete, it doesn't mean that it was straight line to that gold medal being handed to you was in a straight line, whether you're a football player or a skier or a musician or whatever it might be. And I think that makes your story even greater is that even at a young age, and it took a supporting cast of your parents, right? You feel they were an integral part of this.
Totally.
And not giving up on yourself. So I think let's skip ahead a little bit. I have a couple other questions. I want to get into your resorts and how you overcame adversity. And I think you can tell that story through the 5 key elements in your book. And I'm gonna list them out so everybody can hear this and follow along. And then I'm gonna have you color it in, okay?
Sure.
So the first one, the 5 key elements are pick your line, Line, which is picking your path or your vision. I'm going to guess pick your line is a skiing term.
Yeah, that's part. Exactly. That's why I wanted to play off of it. Is pick
Yeah.
your line, because there's a lot of lines you're looking at. I could go this way. I could go that way. But when you do your inspection, you're looking at the different lines, and then you need to, though, before you get in the start gate, you need to say, which line am I taking? Because you can't make it up on the way. You've already got to have it pre-rehearsed in your brain and ready to go. Yeah.
Half a second is probably a long time even to say half a second. But if you're thinking about it, it's too late, right? You have to act on it in the moment.
Precisely. Yeah.
So you won that gold medal by how many hundredths of a second, right?
Yeah, 3/100ths of a second.
There you go. See that? So once you pick your line, your path, and your vision, then you lunge forward, which I know is something in your keynote you really hit home on, lunging forward, which is taking action. Then it's be resilient to get back up off the mat when you're knocked down. That's when I'd like you to talk a little bit about adversity, talk about the teamwork component, and then the winning process. So talked about pick your line. What about lunging forward? How does someone finally, they have this brilliant idea, now they need to do it?
Yeah, lunging forward, you're right. It's taking action, and also what this concept is also lunging forward into our fears. Okay. And I do want to make a big qualification about fears. We as humans aren't great statisticians, and we're not very logical when it comes to fear. We sometimes fear things we shouldn't fear at all, and there are other times we don't fear what we really should fear. We should fear driving the car down the street, and we fear other things. And so for me, I want to say, hey, if something's really dangerous physically, be careful. Have your training. There's no way I could have done what I did if I wasn't training every single day progressively to be able to get there. But what I found in my own life and in my own assessment, because when I went to the world's most feared downhill in the world in Kitzbühel, Austria, I was scared, and I had to look myself in the mirror as a young man with an ego and say, you were scared, man. You were scared, and it held you back, and you gotta do something. You either don't do it, or you gotta learn how to deal through this fear to succeed better. And I consciously worked on retraining my response to fear, that whenever I felt that hesitation, I would lunge forward instead, because that was actually a better response to have on a downhill course. Your reaction is to go back, but your better response is actually to get aggressive and get more forward on your skis. And so I trained and trained and trained. Every time I felt fear, lunging forward. And so that then has
meant it literally on the slopes, that helped you. You literally were in position to lunge forward, and that helped your success.
Totally. Yeah, I went on to set the world downhill speed record. It's 7 miles.
I'd say you applied it pretty well. I think you applied that concept pretty well.
It really parlays back into business then too. As entrepreneurs, there are so many fears, and even fears that are projected onto us and into our ears from well-intended colleagues or family or friends that are well-intended, but these fears build up. Oh, can I? No. And hesitate when there are times we need to lunge forward is the way to success.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then once you lunge forward, you need to be resilient to stay on it, right? Because it's one-time success doesn't mean 15, 20 more years of success.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
I don't want to speak for you, so enlighten us on being resilient.
Sure. Yeah. Being resilient, what it is, it's really, I call it, it's not redundant persistence, but adaptable persistence. And you touched on it too. It's when we get knocked down, it's to get up faster. That's really what it is. And also to learn from it. And so we're all going to get knocked down. We get knocked down. Yeah. In life, I had lots of crashes and some paid the piper sometimes, and other times I got away, but it's to get back up. But it's really the losses or the challenges that then stack onto us and say, oh, should I give up or shouldn't I? There are certain times to change our path in life. But there are also other times when instead of being the fly that's just hitting our head against the window, let's get to the result, but let's go around that thing or over that thing or under that thing. And so really adaptable persistence and having that, acuity that sense of what can I do then to still get there, but maybe it's a little shift in the path to get there.
Yeah, I haven't heard it referred to adaptable persistence, but it's kind of something without thinking about it. I knew I think about myself, whether it's a product or service, and maybe it's not in particular selling really well. So you need to adapt it or change it. I forget the gentleman who I saw him explain this. I think it was in a YouTube video, and he says, if you wait too long to start your business, right, because you're trying to have the perfect product or service, let's call that a square. Right. So you're designing this thing and you're spending time and it needs to be 4 equal sides and you don't know how you're going to do it. You overthink it. You'll never start. So you first thing you roll out the square and you say, we're going to start to sell this. But with adaptable persistence, you notice you sold 3 in a month and that's just not going to cut it. So all of a sudden you realize maybe it's because it was 4 sides and your customers needed 3 sides and you were getting feedback from them. And now you have a triangle. So you sell 10 of them. Right, you basically quadruple your results there, 10 to 12, and then you're listening, and it's, well, why is it that people like the triangle? And now you adapt it to a circle, and that's it. You blew up, right? But you would have never created a circle if you didn't first put the square into existence, and then adaptable persistence got you to the circle.
Great example. Yes, exactly. Right? And I think sometimes we're going to have that adaptable persistence on the product. Sometimes it's going to be on how we're positioning the product or who we're positioning it in front of and how we're positioning. Yeah, it could be a thing in any of those or all of those categories. Totally.
It doesn't mean you need to change industries or a sport. Like if you're just not, maybe baseball's your thing and your swing isn't right. It could be adapting your batting, your stance, opposed to, no, I'm going to go play football now because I had a couple bad games, right?
That's right.
And then teamwork. And something I asked you off camera I'd like you to talk to, because some of us have a team. We might have a leadership team. We might have a board of directors. And there's also people who are either the individual athlete, like yourself at a young age, or myself, a solopreneur in business that have partners and like freelancers that work with me. How does someone with a true team utilize teamwork? And then how would you say you can apply it as like the single athlete solopreneur?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I came from what was called an individual sport, but the longer I was at it, I realized this is a team sport. There's a lot of people at play here. And so I would say, coaches were teammates, our teammates were teammates, our competitors, even some of them became, in a sense, training partners and teammates and people I learned from and they learned from me. I would also say, the support teams, support staff, service providers, those were all team members. And kind of my most, I guess, encapsulating definition would be anyone who can impact your success positively or negatively is on your team. And so how can we have a teamwork mentality to be helping others, putting goodwill in that bank account with others, and then also learning and getting components, favors, elements, services from others to help us succeed. Our banker is on our team, our printing of our papers or our business cards is on our team. Who's on our team? Our salespeople, anybody that's really a service provider. So it's having that mentality to have an abundance mentality and a goodwill mentality with realizing teamwork wins matters. The other one that I would also say is to look at who can we learn from. And I viewed some of my teammates as competitors because they were competitors. And then I thought, you know what? No, let's be training partners, and let's learn from each other and share our knowledge and leapfrog each other. It's one of the things I love in business. Unfortunately in sport, there is only one winner. And there's, 95 that didn't win. But in business, you can have several winners in the same category. It's like, that's brilliant. So here's my goal, this thing to make this much or make this impact, to do this thing. How can I do that? And to really try and learn from one another and leapfrog one another, as you touched on earlier, because that's what we can do, learning.
What's interesting about business too is I really associate sports to it a lot. I use a lot of sports analogies because it first of all, I think there's a lot of natural tendencies, right? When you talk about, like 12 months in the year, it could be 12 games, right? That make up one championship. But what's different about business, I feel like, is, you can win in sports, you can get the gold medal, or you can win the Super Bowl, right? And what an accolade, right? Something you'll never forget, and you'll always be remembered for that performance. But in business, you could have like President's Circle in 2012 for me, but then in 13, everyone was looking and saying, "What are you going to do now?" Right? Who cares about last year? Like, and I think that goes the same for sports as well, right? But it's you can have your best day, your best week, your best month, but if you sit back and start to celebrate it too much and you get comfortable, something I hear a lot of successful entrepreneurs talk about is like they start to turn off their gear a little bit, or the temperature, and they cool themselves back down. So can you talk about how you kept yourself, like you consistently challenged yourself to get, your world medals and you just to even be in the Olympics, you had to play so many times to get there, right? So how did you stay consistent in challenging yourself?
Well, yeah, thanks. And I think I wasn't always consistent in my results, just as you touched on. I don't think any of us are. I think that being consistent in the efforts and consistency in striving to climb higher, I think a few things. Yeah, we want to have the target, get there, and do celebrate. I'm guilty as an entrepreneur of not celebrating enough the victories, with the team or with myself, with my family. So celebrating, I think, is a great thing. What we're not wanting to do, as you touched on, is to kind of get complacent and get lackadaisical in our approach or thinking. One of the things I realized in sport that really mattered was confidence. But I was like, I'm worried about, I don't want to be too confident. And I realized, no, I was blending two words. One was confident, the other was conceit. And they're not necessarily the same thing. And I even parlay that into what it is here, because what I realized is confidence is believing we can achieve anything, is believing someone else cannot. And I really think we want to be able to say, no, I can achieve greatness, but so can someone else. So if I'm achieving greatness, I better keep working my butt off. I better keep learning. I better keep honing and improving. Otherwise, ABC is going to catch me and pass me. And it's really, that's when we're too conceited or we're complacent. We think, oh, nobody can dethrone me. I'm all that in a bag of chips. Then we're in trouble. So I think
it's a weak, being, confidence is obviously it's a positive energy, right? And being conceited, although it can come across, you can have in the moment of being conceited, you might feel strength, but I think it's actually a weakness. It's like you're kind of covering up for something, like no one else can catch me. Well, yeah, because you've been the best at it for a while. Cool. But everyone else is working harder than you now. So if you don't continue to work harder, that's just something in your head. That's not the truth, right? Yeah. So you have to turn it into a strength, which is confidence. A key word, I don't know if you realize this in Buffalo. So I'm in Buffalo, New York, and our head coach of the Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott, his hashtag, right? His MO is the word process. Trust the process. Something he's really been preaching. And now 2 out of 3 years he's made the playoffs, and that's not something we see much in Buffalo. So we really appreciate him in town. Your fifth element of the 5 key elements of how to win is a winning process. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. It's when I looked at sport, as I mentioned in writing the book, I said, what did we do to set world records? And how can I do that again? What did we do to become the best? And I went back and time diarized what we did every day from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. as an athlete throughout a month, throughout a year. And I then looked for what were the macro things we did. And I kind of found we did 5 things every day as an athlete multiple times. And it took up most of our day. And it was really focus was one thing. Focusing, what am I going to focus on mentally? What am I looking for long term? And what am I looking for today? What's my focus? And then it was preparing our mind, preparing our bodies, preparing our equipment. And then it was executing, actually on the snow, through the gates, executing our thing. And then assessing, looking at what did I do right? What could I do to improve? What did I do wrong? What am I going to do next time? And assessment could be objective measurements, a timer. It could also be subjective, what you felt you did. It could be what the coach felt you did. It could be, other components. And then finally, the 5th was rejuvenation, recovering, getting ready so that you could then go again. And, it was surprising in our sport, we spend about 10% of our day on the focus element, we spent a staggering 40% preparing, and then only 5% actually executing,
It, yeah.
and then 25% assessing what worked, what didn't, what can we do to improve, and then the last 20% on rejuvenation, recovering, getting ready then again. And so the percentages will change for all of us in our business or in what sport we're in, but are we taking a little bit of time for each of those 5 categories every day?
Yeah.
And are we putting it into some type of self-improvement cycle? You know, what are we doing to prepare for each day? You know, what is our focus? Are we clear of our focus every day? Are we doing any form of assessment, or how periodically, once a year? Come on, we can't assess once a year.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of assessment are we doing for ourselves, or journaling, or whatever it be, or getting feedback from others or from our customers so that we can improve? So yeah, those are 5 elements. I really call it a self-improvement cycle and the winning process.
And I think the obvious thing is, I mean, if you're daily journaling and looking at a progress report on a daily basis, the corrections, then if you're doing them daily, are going to be quicker, right? More intricate. If you wait a year, you're trying to create a mountain or overcome something that was this big monster that you kind of ignored for a long time. So which one would you rather battle? These little chip shots, or try to climb the mountain because you spent 11 months kind of screwing around over here because you didn't daily adjust your goals, right? Or not adjust your goals, but your game plan. Something my father taught me since I was as old to remember. You got to have a plan, right? Doesn't matter what you're doing. Doesn't mean you're going to, obviously it's executing the plan, but you need to have that plan first.
Yes.
So I love that. Quick thing I want to tie in. I know we got about 12 minutes here. Buffalo, I just mentioned it, right? And I was watching a video that you were in, and you were talking about you were doing these tests in Buffalo, right? You know what story I'm talking about. And can you just share that, how like the opposite of what our brains would tell us, like the aerodynamics of somebody with their knees in tight into their chest, right? You guys were kind of doing squatting through the air. Aerodynamic like an airplane, we thought, or you guys thought, was going to save you on time. But and your competitors were putting their arms out and sprawled out and all this stuff. And they were asking you, they were kind of complimenting you because you were doing well. But then share the story how you came to Buffalo, and that's when you realized through testing that the opposite of what our brains would tell us is actually true.
Sure. Yeah. We were in Buffalo doing the wind tunnel testing where they test race cars, and we were in there, holding with our downhill suits and our gloves and our helmets and our poles, and we were doing our tuck position, which is the position you hold on the flat or the straight part of a downhill course. And while we were there, we thought, okay, let's, there's a couple of stories, but one was we said, let's also test the position we hold in the air when we're skiing, when we go off a jump. And so we have always, our team was called, we were coined the princes of air. We were the best in the air. All our competitors said, you guys are the best. And we said, yeah, we're the best. And so we were there in the wind tunnel. Instead of just then testing our tuck, we thought, well, let's test the position in the air. And when we tested the position in the air that we held, which was a nice compact position with our knees together and our arms right beside our knees, that was actually compared to our competitors, as you said, had their legs apart, their arms apart. And when we tested, our position was the slowest position you could do. And here we'd been patting ourselves in the back, and this big open position was faster. And I was like, what? So as wind engineers, maybe having it all in one spot versus displaced was different. But then we said, okay, well, now we got to flip it on its head and try every position. So we tried every position this way and that. And what we actually found fastest was to have your legs apart and your hands behind your legs when you went off the jump. And so it was different. And after a couple of days, we went back and started trying to implement this into training. And after a couple of days, my teammates, they all stopped doing it. And I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, well, it doesn't feel comfortable. And I thought, a lot of times when we're trying to unlearn something and do something new, it is comfortable. It is uncomfortable. But we've got to practice this until it does become comfortable. So I kept implementing it. And then when I set that world downhill speed record in Kitzbühel of 97 miles an hour, the Austrian television commentators on ORF were showing it over and over in slow motion, me sailing off the finish jump at 97 miles an hour with my legs apart and my hands behind my legs. And they said, what is he doing? Is he crazy? Is he out of control? But what they didn't know is I knew that this was the fastest way to do it. And so it was implementing it beyond what was comfortable and making it comfortable.
How many people followed that? Did you see a lot of people stealing that?
A few people implemented it and followed it and stole it. And then it kind of, it's one of those things, like many secrets or approaches, it got lost,
Yeah, because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
Here's the thing. I have a quote from yesterday. I actually learned this in my Sunday service. In our Pastor Pete, shout out to Pastor Pete at Life Church Buffalo. But he talks about change causing pain. And through pain, we have growth, right? We must endure it to keep the change. So do not get comfortable in your dysfunction. In this case, it's not necessarily dysfunction, but get comfortable in doing something. Well, I guess it was a dysfunction because it wasn't helping you guys win or get faster. But you thought. So I think the lesson there is, just like going to the gym, it's going to hurt, right? But that's actually a growth process that you can feel.
That's right. And I think, retest, as technology is changing, as there's new knowledges out there, are we retesting those old paradigms that we've been holding on to? Because we had an old paradigm. Oh, this is fast. And it wasn't. And I have other, stories of that where the old paradigms don't apply anymore. And so are we re-challenging conventional thinking in our industries and or our own biases that we've held onto for a while?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. And again, so those 5 key elements in the book are phenomenal. Anyone who is interested in a better performance, whether it's in sport or performance of their business, check it out. It's called How to Win, and they can get it on your website, right? CaryMullen.com.
Yeah, Cary Mullen, CaryMullen.com. You got it.
Awesome. So we talked about your successful career as a downhill ski champion. I want to hear about your successful career now, 12 years in the making, if not a little bit more, with Vivo Resorts. When did you have the dream to create these beautiful resorts, which they absolutely are? And what are some of the highlights since you launched?
Wow, thanks a lot. Yeah, my vision for this was I saw this as a place where my parents could potentially retire and really enjoy their golden years, and also where I would want to go on vacation, and where my kids would want to go on vacation. I kind of found that there's often, it's either a spot with just only old people and it wasn't fun for us, or it's a place where only kids go and then my parents aren't having fun or I'm not having fun. So I went, where would be the best place where we could live our best life? And whether that's for a weekend or for a week or for a winter. And so I went in search of the best beachfront spot, really trying to find the best lifestyle spot and also the best investment timing spot. And it was amazing to be able to, I traveled to 15 different countries, meeting with realtors, driving coastlines, really looking for the best spot. And I had a list of 44 factors that were part of that decision. And then I found, okay, here's the spot. And when I really looked at, I wanted this to be, I'd always done real estate as my side project. And then when I had this vision for this resort of where you could live your happiest, healthiest, most connected life, then all of a sudden this passion came on. You were talking about your mission earlier. This mission came to me that I've got to build this for my parents, for our generation and the younger generation. It's kind of a 3-generation place. No matter what age you are, you go live happier, healthier, more connected. And then this passion came and the vision started to clarify more and more. And then it sent me on that search of finding the place. And I first wanted to find really, when I looked at peak experiences in life, it's often where we are, and then it's what we're doing, and it's who we're with. And so I found the spot, and then I put, what can I build here for amenities and programming and services to then live this best life or this happy, healthy, connected vacation, and implemented those amenities into it and programming, and found the great spot. And now we've been able to attract, amazing owners and also amazing vacation people that are looking for something a little different, a little not yet as discovered, but authentic and organic and versioning.
And so they can check that out at, is it vivovacations.com?
There's two spots. Yeah, you can look at vivovacations.com, and Vivo is spelled VIVO, or else vivoresorts.com, Vivo resorts.com.
130 condos total that they can choose from on the website?
Correct. Yeah, we have 130 condominiums built right now, and we have another 59 under construction right now. So we're building more. And yeah, you come as a rental guest, or if you're looking to own a second or third home in a beautiful climate. I call it the best weather in North America. It's the 80s every day of the year. So it's awesome.
You nailed it. Yeah, you found a great spot. I'll tell you what, I need to have a phenomenal year in 2020. I'm going to do everything that's in my control. I'm going to lunge forward. I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to work with my team and have a winning process, right? And then I'll get to, what am I going to get to do, right? Reward myself with maybe a Vivo resort. That's on my vision board.
Perfect. Good.
We'll do a cheers together in person at one of your resorts. How's that?
So
here's what we're going to do. I know you only have a couple minutes, literally a couple minutes left. And how I like to wrap up each episode is with a key message here and a key takeaway for our audience. If you can give them one message, right, to leave them inspired to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams, what would that be?
That would be to get clear and pick your line. What is it that for you, when you achieve or come to fruition, that's going to be amazing of setting you up for a winning life? And get clear, pick that line, and then have the courage to lunge forward and chase it down.
Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to share in the last minute you have here, 30 seconds?
Well, it's been a real joy, and thanks for spending some time with me today, Mike. Yeah. It's awesome to reconnect with you. And also, bravo for this, what you're doing, helping entrepreneurs hear other stories. There's a lot of one step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, one step back that happens in entrepreneurship and happens in life. We all have challenges. So I think to hear inspiring stories and hear from others succeeding and learning from them is a great thing. And so I'm listening to podcasts every day, getting inspired on my way to work. We all need it to we can do a whole bunch internally, but also sometimes we need some external food and inspiration to keep us inspired and climbing.
So it's awesome. Like a university on wheels, right?
It is, exactly.
Yeah. If there's one thing I can do here on my end to deliver in this episode for inspiration, it is consider this. I mean, a couple months ago, I didn't have a podcast or even have the idea or means. Now I have my microphone here, and it's a pretty low startup cost to do this. But I came up with the vision and the mission, and I executed on it. And within a couple months, I just interviewed everybody. I just interviewed a World Cup champion here, Cary Mullen. So thank you so much. That's a really cool moment for myself, meeting you, 8 years ago or so, and doing this today. It just goes to show you nothing's out of reach.
You bet. Awesome.
Hey guys, as always, a huge thank you for tuning in. Having the opportunity to interview and learn from Cary was surreal. I took away a lot from the lessons in his book, How to Win, which is also available on Amazon, and I highly recommend it for any person looking to maximize their efforts and win at business and at life. One of my favorite quotes from the book I highlighted, it's the key defining characteristic among top producers was not that they got knocked down less often than others, but that they got up more quickly. And I love that Cary shared that story. He wasn't a great skier right out of the gate. He required a lot of encouragement from his peers, his parents, and his consistent hard work to achieve his goals. He was not that prodigy gifted child right from birth that slapped on skis and won a World Cup. It took all the lessons he shares in his books to achieve greatness. And he didn't stop there. He later took those lessons and applied them to business when he launched Vivo Resorts. What an inspiring story and an inspiring person. Thank you to all of you guys for tuning in. I'm grateful for you checking out my podcast. Shout out to everyone also on social media who's been sending feedback, and also on Apple and Google on the podcast apps. Really appreciate you tuning in and leaving your feedback. And thank you for making this journey as much fun as it's been. I appreciate you helping spread the love. You can check out more show notes and information at mikeduppodcast.com, MIKED uppodcast.com, powered by Social Chameleon. You know what to do. Be great and be grateful.